Welcome to the second video for Session 2 of Mid-Program Workshop on your Community Action Project, Identifying Challenges and Opportunities. In the first video, we visited the requirements of your Community Action Project. Now for the fun part. Let's start to think about what you want to plan and implement. This video will ask you a series of questions to help you think through your project idea. Remember, each one of you may be at a very different point in thinking of ideas or planning your project. Whether you have one really strong idea that you're excited to plan around, or if you have a few ideas you're unsure of, I will guide you through a series of questions which will help you form a tentative project goal. To get started, make sure that you have downloaded the Community Action Project brainstorming worksheet found in this module and have it in front of you. You can either have it on your computer screen to type in or print it out for you to write responses to. Again, I will guide you through this brainstorming worksheet, and I will be asking you to stop the video at times and write responses to the prompting questions. So again, make sure you have that worksheet ready to go. Let's get started. Let's start with the first section on vision. This section, we will review the big picture of what drives your work. So first, your community action project should be something that you are very passionate about that relates to the larger impact you want to have on the world. Do you remember during orientation when Deidre asked you to write a headline and you were prompted to answer, how do you want the world to be in the future? Pause the video now and think back to this headline. Write the headline or some version of the headline that you remember on question 1 on your brainstorming worksheet. When you're done, press play again. Welcome back. Hopefully you remembered or wrote down a different version of the vision that you had at orientation. So next, you've also been working on your personal leadership plan where you've written a personal vision. Take a moment to revisit this vision in your personal leadership plan. You may find that it closely aligns with your newspaper headline, or it might be a bit different. But read through this vision in your personal leadership plan now, and then write a short summary of this vision under question 2 of your worksheet. Pause the video and answer question 2 on your brainstorming worksheet now. Welcome back. So next, let's reflect on the goals of your work at your host organization and home organization. Now, what are you working towards at both of these places? Some of you may have a few different jobs or volunteer activities back home, so you can pick one or combine the goals of the work that you do for social impact back home. So let's think about what some of those goals of your organizations might be. What we mean by this is think about a specific goal. So are you working towards, for example, increasing the number of registered voters? Are you working to increase access to healthcare for women? You may have two different goals from your host organization and your home organization, or they may align quite well. So take a few minutes to think about this. Pause the video, write your responses under question 3 about the goal of your practicum work, and question 4 about the goal of your work back home. Now that you have brainstormed those questions, keep in mind that your community action project should help you move a step closer to seeing your vision come to life. Your cap should help you reach part of that newsletter headline from orientation, your PLP vision, and the goals of your host and home organization. It should move you a step closer in that direction. You should be passionate and devoted to the cause that your cap is addressing. Community action projects often require fellows to devote time and energy to something that's in addition to a very busy schedule when you return back home. So when we emphasize that it should be something you're truly passionate about, that's very important because you're going to want to be excited to wake up each day to work on your CAP project. It should be something, again, that's very close to your heart. So now that you've revisited the vision and goals of the work you are already doing and the vision you have for the world, we are now going to talk about how this can correspond to a need in your community back home. On the screen here is an example of a follow-on project, a community action project from a previous fellow. This fellow had the vision of women's economic empowerment and women being equal to the men in their community around the jobs and the skills that they can have and their contributions toward society. So this fellow planned their community action project to help women learn different skills that can lead to income generation. So this is an example of a fellow who aligned their big vision of the world of economic equality with the work that they were already doing at their host and home organizations around women's economic empowerment and entrepreneurship, and therefore found the need in the community to actually have specific skills building trainings in Kenya. So that's one example of how you can marry these all together. So again, your CAP should be something you're passionate about and already devoted to, but it also needs to address a particular need in your community. It should be a need where you feel you can make an impact on addressing. So you want to ask yourself, where is that gap in your community where your specific skills, networks, and talents can fill? Where is the win-win, or the mandala, as Deidre talks about, where you can pull the overlap between your passion, your work, and the need in the community? So keep in mind that all of our communities have many, many needs and many gaps, right? But you want to make sure you're focusing in on what you care most about and what you feel that through your community action project you can have an impact on. Let's take an example. So for example, let's say that you're passionate about access to computers. You really feel that all individuals should have access to information through having computers that they can easily access and log online and browse information on. But your community already has a robust library system, and most individuals actually already have access to personal computers. Therefore, there's no actual need in your community for computer access. In this case, you'll want to dig deeper to find out what the real need is. You might identify then that there's a large disparity in computer skills based on socioeconomic status. You might find that although all people have access to computers, low-income students are not taught the same computer skills or internet literacy skills as higher-income students. Therefore, the lower-income students are not able to access the same information as those with a higher income. You've therefore identified a need. The need is not the access to computers, the need is the skills to use computers effectively for low-income students. It's still aligned with your passion overall, but it has a clearly defined need where you will be able to see your impact. That's just one example. So you want to take some time to identify what this need is in your community. You want to write a statement of need next in your Community Action Project brainstorming worksheet under section 2. I'll give you one more example. If my community has a high rate of girls in school, I might think that the need is for more girls to be in school. And the data is showing me that girls out of school are more prone to human rights violations such as early childhood marriage, domestic abuse, gender-based violence, poverty, and health risks. Girls with higher level of education in my community are shown to raise the economic status of their household, have more professional opportunities, and contribute further to a healthier society. So I've identified that my community has a need of educating more girls and reducing the rate of school dropout for girls. And I'm specifically identifying that the need happens around age 8, where girls tend to drop out. So my need is education for girls between the ages of 8 to 12 years old. That's just one other example of what we mean when we say identify the need in your community. So take a few minutes now. Keep in mind that it's okay if you've identified a few different needs that align with your passion. You can include all of those, but we will want you eventually to hone in on one specific need. Remember, this is a brainstorming worksheet. It's meant to be a bit messy. It's meant to be filled with different ideas. So the goal is to really help you think through these ideas, not to have a perfectly completed worksheet at the end. So be creative, have fun with it, brainstorm, and dig deep into these questions. So right now, pause the video and answer question 5. So welcome back. Now that you have identified a strong need in your community, let's focus on the next section of understanding the system that your need operates within. In order to really address a need, we need to understand the system that it exists within, and some people call this or might reference systems thinking or systems mapping. Right? It's taking a look at the complexity in our society that contributes to different problems that you may see in your community. Understanding the system we operate within allows us to then identify how to be the most strategically effective. Identifying the system around our issue allows us to recognize and grow the skills that we need to be able to work within a complex system and to be able to adapt to changing environments, because systems are always changing. So let's talk a little bit more about what we mean by the system that your need operates within. Issues we care about exist because of larger structures that are in place or other forces that lead to the social, economic, political, or environmental challenges we face. For example, if the issue is pollution, pollution exists within a really large system. It's not just one person creating a problem. It's a system-wide problem in your community. So in order to be effective in community work, we need to recognize the complexity of these systems that these issues are a part of in order to find the leverage point for where we can really make a difference. A leverage point is a place within a system where, with effort, some change can be made. Why is the issue you identified existing? Who contributes to maintaining this issue, and who's trying to change it? For example, how I just talked about pollution. Pollution exists because of a very large system, multiple actors, multiple factors into why you might find lots of pollution in the quality of air in your city. Again, it's a complex system. It relates to transportation, it relates to waste management, it relates to emissions from factories, it relates to corporations, policy set by the government. The system that lies within why pollution exists is very large and complex. You alone will not be able to fully eliminate all the pollution in your city within the next 6 months for your project, right? So you need to find your leverage point. Your leverage point is where you feel you can make a difference. For example, you might have lots of connections in the transportation industry in your community. You might actually even work for your local ministry around transportation. Perhaps then your leverage point is to educate the public around different emission policies for their vehicles by doing community-led dialogues and community outreach campaign around emission standards for their vehicles. That's something that you could tangibly do within 6 months of your community action project. So that is what we would consider your leverage point. You would hope that potentially by educating the public about different policies around transportation emission, that people would make changes to their vehicles and they could potentially take more public transportation options, and that you would see some impact around pollution in your community. That's your specific leverage point. You can't necessarily affect the entire complex system within the 6 months of your project, but you can still do something that makes a difference. Let's take another example about girls' education, which we were just talking about. Does the Ministry of Education contribute to the problem of girls dropping out, or are they actually trying to improve the rate of girls completing their education? How about the different culture around girls being educated? Do families send their girls and boys to school equally, or might families be sending their boys first, and if they're able to, if they have the income, maybe they'll send a girl to school as well, but it's not that common. It's a large system for why you might find that girls are not educated at the same rate as boys in your community. But you'll want to find where your leverage point is with the system. If you find that your leverage point is talking to families because you've identified the need is for a sort of culture shift around educating girls and boys equally. You have strong connections to your community, and so you plan your community action project where, again, you go to different community members, you hold town halls in your community around the benefits of educating girls and preventing early childhood marriage. That might be your leverage point. Or let's say you have a strong connection to the Ministry of Education. You might be able to have your leverage point be about actually creating policy change at the ministry level. It depends on your own network, your own skills, your own sense of where you are within the system that your problem is located within. So knowing all of this, knowing who the different stakeholders are within the system, that's when you can, again, really identify your unique position to make a difference. Again, that's your leverage point, the area within the system where you can make a change happen. Now, systems thinking or systems mapping is very, very complex. For the sake of time, we won't have the ability to dive into systems thinking. If this is something you've done before, please share those resources with your fellow colleagues and your fellow peers. If not, there are some optional courses outside of IREX that you're able to take and you can find in the resource section. So take some time now to think about the system that your issue falls within. You'll want to pause the video in just a moment and respond to questions 6 and 7 about the system. Why does the issue and the need you identified exist? Who contributes to maintaining it or who's trying to change it? And then what is your leverage point? The point where you can make the biggest difference you feel you can within the period of your community action project. So pause the video now and answer questions 6 and 7. Welcome back. So you should have now completed sections 1, 2, and 3 on your community action project brainstorming worksheet. These questions may have been very easy for you if you have already a well thought out project, or you may have found them quite challenging. It's very common for fellows to find some of these questions a bit difficult because, again, you are just brainstorming. Eventually, more clarity will come around these ideas for your project. So know that other CSP fellows are experiencing what you're experiencing as far as planning this project. And remember, there's no right or wrong. This is just a brainstorm for your project. Now that we've reviewed your vision, a specific need in your community, and you understand why that need exists and how you can intervene or where your leverage point might be, let's pull all of this together to form your project idea. Let's now get to what you feel you are capable of doing as an intervention to the issue you identified. We'll now focus on section 4, your goal and approach. On the worksheet, you want to think of your project idea, then a specific goal. A goal should be the high-level purpose of your project. For example, if your big picture vision is to live in a society with no government corruption, you may plan a project such as your project goal might be to increase citizens' awareness of government spending in my local municipality by July of 2019. That could be your goal. So that's what we mean when we talk about think of the specific goal for your project, and you'll want to now write a draft of the goal. Again, this is to brainstorm. You'll have time to go in, change, edit in the weeks and months ahead, but take some time now to brainstorm a draft of your goal. Now that you've identified a potential goal for your community action project, you'll then want to focus on the approach, the different activities that you'll want to do to reach your goal. Now, this might be for you and your team. You might be operating within a lot of structure when you return back home. So you'll want to think about what is feasible with the different team that you'll be working with. You might also be doing this voluntarily, not within the work that you do back home. Potentially you have a different job than your volunteer work, and you want this project to be part of your volunteer work. So you'll have to think about, if you don't have such a structured team, then how about what you and the network of other volunteers are able to do? You'll want to consider your resources, staffing, partners, your political and social environments as well. So an example project approach for the goal we just mentioned about government transparency, I might think about what my organization already does at home. So for example, I'm a fellow, and if I'm at home and my organization already runs an online portal which allows citizens to access legislation, and the site is visited often. So I'm starting from a strong place where my organization that I work for already does a lot of what I want to do. I just want to kind of take this to the next step with my CAP. So I will develop a supplemental page on our website that tracks government spending that will be shared widely among my community, which has a high level of social media internet use. I also will think strategically about why my approach will help me reach my goal. So that approach is around developing out more resources online around a database for government spending. Yours might be very different than that. But that approach, as a fellow, I might feel like that approach will help me reach my goal of having citizens be more engaged and aware of government spending in my municipality. So again, you want to think about, why will your specific approach help you reach your goal? So in that case, by granting citizens access to government spending where corruption is common, they will be equipped to make better voting choices and demand more transparency from their elected officials. So I've connected my approach back to my goal for why I think this is going to work and have an impact. Take a few minutes now to complete the brainstorming worksheet section 4. We recommend working through this worksheet also with your host supervisor, colleagues, even your peer learning counterpart, pod group members, anyone else at your home organization in the future to help you think through some ideas if you're getting stuck on any of these questions. So right now, pause the video and you want to complete section 4. So after you've completed your worksheet, you'll submit it on the mid-program workshop Apply Learning Activity section below, but please note that your worksheet is not going to be graded. You won't be receiving feedback on that worksheet from us. Instead, it's a way to show us that you have gone through this way of thinking around brainstorming for your project. Again, like I just mentioned, we really encourage you to share your ideas, brainstorm with your colleagues, with other CSP fellows, access your alumni mentor. If you haven't talked to them in a little bit, now's a great time to reach back out to them, to talk with them about your project ideas and see what insight and advice that they can give. We hope that you have enjoyed the brainstorming exercise. Again, it may have been challenging to do, but we do think that brainstorming through ideas will help you form a more solid and thought-through project for your community action project. So what will you do next with planning your CAP? After you've completed this brainstorming worksheet, we will prompt you in the next section about completing a community action project profile page, which is due on October 12th on the CLI platform. Again, what's due on October 12th is a draft. It is not at all meant to be final, and you'll have nearly a whole month after that to finalize that page. It's again meant to be a way to show others what you're thinking about and to gather feedback. So after this video, you will hear from CSP alumni who have successfully implemented their CAPs, and their advice may help provide some insight and guidance for you as you move through the planning in your project. We hope that you found this session useful to brainstorming your particular community need and how you aim to address it. Thank you so much for joining me for this video, and we look forward to you watching the alumni videos and gaining some insight from